Hi everybody, welcome to our weekly energy reading for the collective conscious, and I want to say that I am a lot more grounded and calmer than I was a week ago. I know some people informed me that they had picked up on what they understood to be anger, perhaps more from a personal perspective, something that would have been causing anger within me based upon the banal trials and tribulations of everyday life, of relationships and intimacy. But it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with understanding that when we speak in broad terms in our existence of mind control, of being brainwashed, these are just very harsh and obvious and more vulgarian ways of speaking of manipulation, of coercion, of gaslighting. The same psychological experiences that we have in our everyday lives, through the web of our lives, through the relationships that we have with other people, other entities, corporations, representational institutions. All of this on the micro level, on the personal level, is exponentially present on a multitude of other hierarchical levels, as in almost like an atmospheric chart of delineation of that hierarchy. Within a system, we exist on the level of our consciousness. Now, we don't have the proof yet that there is a connection between dimensionality and different aspects of consciousness and the conscience. But I believe that we are currently going through a period where we are being awakened in parallel on a multitude of levels of consciousness and therefore dimensionality. So as we go through, this is the way that enlightenment works in theory. The discovery of the truth leads to spiritual awakening. And then this knowledge of the truth in our surroundings, in our cognizant healing of dissonance, we are then able to, what was I saying? In our cognitive healing of dissonance, we find spiritual answers to our inner questioning. And the inner questioning comes directly from situations that we find ourselves in the web of our lives, right? So currently, we're merging the experience on the micro level with the structures on the macro level. And the reason I'm all over the map right now is because I'm trying to find a way into explaining exactly what the vastness of the vision is. and the fact that it can be expressed in tangible, mappable human terms as much as in languages of the great beyond that we do not know yet. It's like the subject is so vast that it's almost like I can't even finish sentences, you may have noticed. So anyway, I am just going to acknowledge right now that the truth of our world is that we are in a Ponzi scheme that involves warring factions of manifestations of light and dark. And whether this be mapped out in terms of the human race being predominantly enslaved to institutional hierarchy that goes on and on to well beyond our elected governments and even our transparent corporation representation in society, corporations behind corporations, melded with political organizations, non-governmental organizations, our institutions, our global institutions. There's something well beyond that in pragmatic, material terms, but then beyond that even, beyond our own visual, ocular capacity, beyond our sentient capacity, there are these elements at war with each other. And it is a little bit like Star Wars, really, isn't it? Because there are people that can, or there are forces that can collaborate as allies because they have a common goal. And that enormous rabbit hole is still just a tiny speck of nothing in the grand scheme of the universe in which we live. And so it is not some measly person like myself, in all humility, that is going to be able to offer you the secrets of the universe or solutions to the problems that we are now facing more and more consciously together. But I do know the law of cause and effect. I also know much of the laws of nature. And I know that we can make a difference. We can spread truth in a world that is desperately lacking it. And we can help awaken others now because we've understood that even if we can't get into the politics of such massive distortion and massive hoodwinking of the public, we now know that in spiritual terms, the work that we've been doing on ourselves is what has led us to places of inner security that allows us to receive the truth, despite the destabilizing nature of realizing that you have been living with not just blinders on, but the sense of complicity that's there is what is most shocking, because to have participated so much in something unknowingly, partially knowingly, voluntarily ignorant in any case to a lot of these things. This evolutionary process is spiritual first and foremost, and to be able to encourage others to improve on their spiritual wellness and their health is half of the work. We are getting confirmation of this. Why do you think these dark forces would throw upon us something that concerns our health and our ability to be in touch with one another? Not figuratively, in touch. Skin on skin. A hug. Human beings cannot live without touch. We know this from solitary confinement experiments. Imprisonment. We know what that does to the human soul. So, right now, given everything that is happening in our world, and given that we are so deprived of so many of our fundamental rights and ability to pursue happiness, we have to ground ourselves in our spiritual truth. We're being given a sense of where things can go if we don't fight with the light. So, let's do it. A lot of the reason why I'm not going into the specifics of astrology right now is because the aspects that are most important really require a lot of in-depth explanation and understanding. And I've never wanted to make this channel about astrology, because there are plenty of other people who are much better at understanding astrology and who have a real amazing expertise of it too. And those people can give you the information about things that they know better. Because that's what I do. I receive that from people that I respect and admire and see as authorities on the subjects that I am interested in. I have my own brand or identity in the sense of accepting who I am fundamentally and putting it more authentically into my way of communicating with you, using our tools of the esoteric realm and other dimensional wisdom. So, because there's so much going on right now, and because we're taking in so much information, and because even those that want to stay asleep are having a really hard time staying asleep, it's also important that we prioritize unplugging incrementally based upon how much time we are plugged in. Because not only is the electromagnetic energy of being so plugged in to our devices and the internet and so on and so forth not optimal for the long-term investment of energy that is required of us in order to hold our space on this journey going forth. But it also is important to have time to digest all the things that we are learning, right? I mean, because we've been trained in our corrupt society to consume information in a way that is so detrimental to our growth, in the sense that it is so disposable that we don't, it's the same as people that eat junk food all the time. We have that same condition in our minds at this point where we expect to consume information without there being a great density of nutritious thought and ideas within what we consume. So everything gets mistaken for junk. We actually retain very little of the information that we are actually exposed to at this point. So when we're upgrading like this, and this is essentially, we are downloading from the universe, even those of you watching maybe that don't practice spiritual meditation in the capacity that we often talk about, when you're sleeping, it's happening, whether you like it or not. And it's to be liked, because it's really, these upgrades are accelerating the light. The light within us is really expanding quicker than any of us imagined. And because that light is coming through so brightly, it's shining a much brighter, more intense light on all the darkness that's been concealed. So we have to maintain personal balance in order to succeed in reaching our goals and fulfilling our destinies. There's a duality to that, right? We've compartmentalized those two aspects of ourselves, the plugged-in aspect of ourselves and the unplugged aspect of ourselves. And I want you to start thinking about this in terms of dimensionality. I want you to start understanding and really recognizing how different your consciousness is when you're plugged in and when you're unplugged. And you've probably noticed that there's something very confusing going on right now. We talked about it a little bit last week in terms of when I talked about sort of permanent Halloween energy around, but that was before we'd evolved into more knowing. So at the time it felt very shadowy, but it seems that it has ultimately revealed itself to being as a result of these upgrades, these spiritual upgrades that we're receiving, we're actually hovering a little bit between two forms of dimension, and that is perceived by our minds as perhaps being a little, not schizophrenic, but using that as in an allegorical sense, the idea of the separation of the mind into Maybe even a feeling of being outside of ourselves at times. Again, not in the sense of standing outside and being able to view ourselves as people speak of in terms of astral projection, but more in the sense of just kind of maybe our crown energy has grown so much that our aura is carrying a certain type of energy that allows us to kind of step out of the normal bounds of our physical energy. I won't go any further into that because that's intuitive. I certainly have been having that experience, but then again, I do also participate in a little recreational marijuana use. So maybe that makes it easier for me to understand the abstract nature of what I'm projecting. Let me know if you've been feeling that way in the comments. From my notes, I did actually make notes today, believe it or not. I never do. Yes, the closing of the Piscean era, you know, it's like, imagine the tail of a comet. It's kind of like that. It's like we're still in the tail of all that Piscean energy, even though we're moving out of it. The fundamental message I've got on that is that we are being freed from emotional enslavement of trauma, and that it is no longer permissible in the new paradigm. This week, I decided, well, I didn't really decide, it decided for me, that the deck, that is, that the Spirit Animal Oracle deck wanted me to pull 2 cards this week, and one specifically for the Oracle message and the other for the protection message, and these 2 cards came out together, and I took them in the order that they were collated, and I thought it was really interesting because our Oracle message was Cat Spirit, which I know we've never had before, given that I am a feline worshipper, I guess is the only word I can possibly say. So we get this, the inner child version, the alpha version of the feline, and then for our protection message we've got Lion Spirit. And their messages are very different, but actually work out perfectly in terms of their delineation in the roles that I am perceiving them as. So here I shall read the Oracle message from Cat Spirit, number 13, the message being Claim Your Independence, and the Oracle message is, when Cat Spirit meows, she is calling you to claim your independence and allow for some space between you and others in your life. The only way you can grow in all your relationships now is to have a healthy sense of self-respect and self-worth. When you walk with dignity, knowing who you are, self-aware and willing to grow, trusting the value you bring, the world will mirror all this back to you in kind. When you say no to codependency and enmeshment, live and let live, and practice taking risks as you wander into new territory for you. Cat Spirit rejoices. She is here to urge you to let your independent spirit roam free. Fuck. This is because I'm spending time around Australians and I can't speak anymore. That can only be received with humor, dear Australians who watch. Sometimes I speak without thinking. It's very rare these days, but sometimes I do. Oh God. Let me reread that last paragraph. When you say no to codependency and enmeshment, live and let live, and practice taking risks as you wander into new territory for you, Cat Spirit rejoices. She is here to urge you to let your independent spirit roam free. And I'm going to take the... before we go any further, let's think about that. I mean, could there not be, on a more obvious level, the fact that, of course, we're in frickin' quarantine, and we're all sheltering in place, and we're all scratching our heads and having to find ways to invest in ourselves in ways that we haven't done for a very, very long time, but that also means that our inner child is, acting out, and either you have other figures around you that you can easily project authority figure issues onto, or if you don't have anybody else around you and you're alone, you could be feeling very lost as a result of not having anybody else to kind of play the authority figure to you when your inner child's in need. So this is what the cat spirit, lion spirit thing, dynamic is all about to me. So that's why we're going with the protection message for lion spirit. Number 37, be generous of spirit. So you see, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. It's the yin and the yang. And the projection message from lion spirit is, do you doubt you can do much good? Are you stuck in a state of scarcity thinking? Oh no, that's not what I'm meaning at all. Are you stuck in a state of scarcity thinking, who am I to lead? Or who am I to step into my dream? Who am I to have an amazing relationship? Who am I to think I can help? Lion Spirit is here to tell you that the antidote for low self-esteem is stepping into healthy pride. Of course you can do all that you desire. The spark of Great Spirit lives inside you, and you are here to steward that amazing energy into the world. Lion Spirit knows that Great Spirit invested in you so that you might be a channel for Spirit's love and generosity. Take pride in your role, seeking to bring an abundance of love into the world. Isn't that what we were saying? How, even if we can't invest ourselves into the hell of geopolitical, global elitist, hidden agendas, on the spiritual level, we certainly can remain invested as ambassadors for the light. Because I don't know about you, but if you're watching this, I imagine that you want to be fighting for the light, right? It's real. You really are here as a representative of the light. And you have to start remembering that all the time. And remember that you have to protect yourself. That's getting to be really more and more and more and more and more and more and more important, okay? Perhaps you do too much. No, that's not possible either. God, what is wrong with me? Perhaps you do much good already, but you're feeling underappreciated, wanting to hold back your gifts and hoard them for yourself. Maybe you're looking for attention and praise. Maybe you were even being generous with the expectation that you would be entitled to a repayment. Know that the real magic happens when you remember there is always enough and you are always enough. Give freely without agenda or expectation, and let Lion Spirit remind you that in giving you receive. Then you will see that you are appreciated. Stop comparing yourself to others and seeing yourself as less than, for within you is a wellspring of generosity. Well, that's very nice, isn't it? So we need to hold our space for ourselves, but we also, in defending those boundaries quietly, remember, Lion Spirit still reminds us that from that defined quiet boundary, we can be generous as spirit. And that is where the balance for the week ahead lies. I haven't pulled any other cards, but I did decide that I would, I did say that I would take from the Botticelli deck, and I'm going to allow a message to come from the 6-card spread. Maybe it'll be 5, I don't know, we'll see. And then I'm going to do a Celtic Cross again, because the Celtic Cross really does allow us to tell a story. Let's see. The Queen of Cups came out sort of when she sort of did a spin, and she kind of ended up upside down, but I'm putting her sideways. We're going to get some context. I'm wearing this cap because I have quarantine hair. It needs to be cut, and that ain't happening anytime soon, and I don't really feel like buzzing my hair right now. Maybe in the summer, but not yet. Plus, I mean, I feel really vain, and I just feel kind of, I don't know, like, okay. Who cares? You know, the reality is I am 44 years old. I have been a recipient of Peter Pan psychology for the vast part of my adult life, and I'm relatively well preserved. But I am mature now, and I have receding hairline, thinning hair in the back, I have gray hairs, in my beard, I have, like, you know, like, the understanding that, like, you know, I always think of, like, you know, when you're younger, you focus on age from the perspective of thinking that it's all about lines, but then when you really start aging, you suddenly realize that it's really all about gravity. It's like, wait, I don't have lines, but if this was lifted, it would look like it used to. It's very simple, but anyway, I speak of that because somebody else that I admire very much has been speaking a lot about very uncomfortable things for them in their own psychology via another channel, and I admire that very much because it really does take a lot for us to be in the fullness of the belief that we have in ourselves, you know, to accept ourselves fully as we are, to get beyond all of these hideous consumerist labels that when we come into the light and we become enlightened about the truth of how our society is, suddenly a lot of those neuroses that we've held on to about being old or fat or not having a college degree or, you know, somehow not being poor or whatever, you know. I mean, the reality is that if you are any of those things, chances are that's because you are carrying the weight of the world. Your soul is old and wise, and you are an advanced soul, and that is why you have felt the need to burden yourself with so much self-loathing, because you're carrying like so much guilt and programming from past lives that then you create in this life too, so that you know those feelings, and so they inform you, so that you get quicker on your path to enlightenment, so that you can start working on behalf of the light consciously. So all of those ugly labels that in the stupid global elitist world that tries to control us all the time, you gotta let go of those now. It doesn't matter if you weigh 35 kilos or 150 kilos or whatever that is in pounds. It doesn't matter if you're 12 or 89. You are an energy force. Don't allow yourself to be dragged into the lower energies. The lower frequencies are the ones that condition you out of your power, that tell you that because you're not young anymore by society standards, that you're not potent anymore. This is not true. The older we get, the wiser we become. If we take care of our bodies and we respect ourselves, we don't have to age out of activity. These are all truths. So, as long as you're breathing and thinking and you're conscious, you're here to serve the light in as full of force at 89 as at 12 or 40. Ah, and a while of slurping tea sometimes. Okay, so the energies of this week. What do we have here? The journey is taking us from this twisted Queen of Cups. So this tells me that we're rooted on our journey in some emotional turmoil, feeling emotionally drained, perhaps as a result of having to come into a new understanding of our place. You know, it's like when you have to step up to something, there's that moment before the commitment where you feel really deflated, and you realize that you have to blow the wind in your own sails. Emotionally speaking, I think that's where we're all coming out of now. But we are receiving some fast-moving energy, and possibly as messages, as communication. But possibly also internal messages. The more we practice that unplugging, and we allow spirit to speak to us, to inform our feelings, to recognize our feelings, to explore them, and then subsequently to be open to direction and guidance. I would say that that's actually what this is. There's a lot of guidance coming in for us in this next week, so do everything you can to be as open to that as you possibly can be. The reason I say this is because at the center of these energies we have the Chariot card, and the Chariot, as we know, is the divine masculine, ready for battle, waiting for the divine feminine to intervene in unison in order to move forward on a great journey. It's the ultimate life journey. It's a journey of having the wealth of true humanity. Isn't it very liberating to let go of the idea that you have to have money to be wealthy? That your value is measured in something that you can't even see, that people can feel when they're plugged in, not plugged into their machines, but plugged into spirit. That frequency is rising more and more in those of us that are awake, and that balance between the conscious and the unconscious mind, between spirit and body and heart, that's coming into the fullness of its potency, strength. Again, we have the lion there. This is the Leo card. But we see this woman has tamed this lion. And the lion submits to her. Because she has the force of divinity, and she holds him, and the energetic cycle moves through him back into her. So this is a card as much, there's surrender in strength. Think about that. There's strength in surrender too. I mean, you see the infinity symbol above her head? I don't know if it's going to focus enough to be able to see it. There, anyway. That's infinity. That is that connection between spirit and ourselves. And then it came out as a double message. We got the Wheel of Fortune with the Ace of Wands. That's a shift into great inspiration and destination. It's knowing which way we're going. It's having a sense of purpose. It's being locked into that purpose, honoring it, feeling great inspiration and drive. So that's definitely something to look forward to. So that's the underlying energy of the week. And now I'm going to do a quick Celtic cross for you. I don't know why the cards are not there. I don't know if they want to do this. I don't know if Spirit wants to do this. Is it the deck? Oh, okay. Apparently I'm just supposed to use the Botticelli deck. Sometimes it has to do with I use a bunch of different crystals on my decks, and it's my own system. Most people would probably think I was completely bonkers, but I put different combinations of crystals on the deck, so maybe this one got supercharged or something. I don't know. Who knows if that's what happens. I'm sure I have all kinds of nuggets that I would love to be sharing with you right now, but as I always record these at the end of the day, I tend to be pretty mellow at this point. Usually. Obviously, you saw last week that wasn't the case. Ten of Cups. That's where we're going to end up energetically this week. Okay, what do we have here? Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. I don't think we're even going to take clarifiers on any of these because I think they pretty much speak for themselves. What do we have at the center of our reading? We have, sorry, Queen of Cups. That we just had in our previous reading. We also have crowning us the Eight of Wands that we had. So there's definitely a message there that we need to... Actually, I will clarify those specifically. Thank you. Our underlying energy from the Celtic Cross is the Two of Pentacles. So the Two of Pentacles is the juggling card. It is literally us. Right now, what is the Two of Pentacles telling us? We've just seen the infinity symbol, which is essentially those two discs side by side, conjoined. I'm seeing it in terms of the micro and the macro, in terms of the cat and the lion. That's what that means. Can I get a clarifier for the Queen of Cups, seeing as we've had her twice and she came out all over the place before? Okay, we get 3. High Priestess, the 5 of Wands, and the Magician. Okay, so the High Priestess, 5 of Wands, and the Magician. So what this means is doing the spirit work, meditation, setting intent. That's what it is, setting intent. Take stock of what you have at your fingertips, and then see this person here. This person has to turn into this person, the Magician, and then you have to go in and do your magic. Trust that Spirit provides that for you by it's through alchemy, but it means that, like, if you open yourself up to Spirit and you allow yourself to consciously receive those downloads, you will have the tools at your fingertips to do your work on behalf of the light. In our past, we have the Three of Wands, which is this long energy of waiting for our ships to come in. This is the longing card. It's the card of expectation. It's the card of a knowingness of something to come that we've not quite been able to put our fingers on too. And boy, oh boy, have we ended up going through our underlying energies in the past. The Seven of Swords. This is that card again of, it's a very complicated card, but it's a card of indirectness. It's a card, it can be deceit, it can be the withholding of truth. It can be connivance against us. And as it's at the root of this reading, I would say that because of this knowledge, spiritual awakening through knowledge, that's what this is all about, this journey. I'd say it's coming out of that. That being the mud that we've been stuck in that waiting energy of the Three of Wands. And where we go from there, we come into, in our immediate future, the Sword of Truth, Ace of Swords, brand new ideas, brand new philosophy, brand new perspective on life. The Eight of Wands crowns us. It's the message card that we talked about, but I would like a clarifier on that if we can, because why not? Because we're only at 50 minutes, so I can probably have this finished in under an hour. Wouldn't that be nice for you? Oh, that didn't seem like the cards were trying to tell me anything. That was more me just dropping them all. I don't feel like getting a clarifier for the Eight of Wands. Can I get a clarifier for the Eight of Wands, please? No clarifier? Well, maybe that's just because we're going to be receiving the messages when the messages come. We just have to wait. Well, not wait, because remember, we have to do the spiritual work of the High Priestess in order to get there, but that's where we're going to get the messages. I forgot. Oops, sorry. Then we have the Six of Cups in our present, so I would say that we're going to have a week where we may find ourselves, because we're feeling that separateness from our past. The world is so radically different at this point that you must get that sense, right? That there's it's never going to be the same again. We can never go back there. But when that becomes the truth and we accept it and we move past the mourning of the old vision, it's human nature in our psyche to then find the embellishments that can reconcile ourselves with our past and hold space for it as a source of beauty and knowledge and experience and culture. Knowledge, of course. Culture is knowledge, but knowledge is vast, right? So I'd say get ready for a little bit of nostalgia, a little melancholy vibe, a little emotional honesty with ourselves about how we feel as we adjust. Then, in our environment, we have the Lovers. And the Lovers is clarified by these two cards that just came out. The Six of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords. So let me hold those up for you. There's the Lovers. And the Lovers is the card of choice, free choice. Freedom to reach the best choice, which is always the choice attached to love. The path of love and truth. Truth is love. And what this choice is between being stuck in the fear energy of the Eight of Swords, too fat, too thin, too old, too poor, too ugly, too whatever, not good enough. Choice between letting go of that, which is a false choice, because why would you want to hang on to that? Or this, the Six of Pentacles, which is when we open ourselves up to our vulnerability and we allow ourselves to express ourselves authentically to the outside world, we're then able to receive freely from others. And that can be in whichever way you need. In our hopes and fears, we have the Sun. And this is a card of union, as in universality and harmony and alignment and everything being in its proper place. So our hope could be that we regain that soon in some way. There can also be the fear of not regaining that. But one could argue that, well, so many other things change when we are awakened to the truth and we follow the light and we fight on behalf of the light. But that's not one of them. Those principles of the sun, they live on no matter the political ideology, no matter the environmental changes we go through. We're human. And we all share infinite commonalities, but at the very basis, our largest common denominator is our ability to thrive on love, to receive love and to give love, to be in harmony. That's the highest resonance of humanity, and it's the one that the light pushes us to aspire to reaching. And our outcome for this week is the Nine of Pentacles. So this is reaching a place of self-contentment and inner harmony as a result of acceptance of our place on our journey, our ability to recognize what we have already received, how much we have, that we already are the magician, that we don't have to go through that Five of Wands energy of one taking stock of our ingredients. If we just believe in ourselves and we let go of that Eight of Swords energy and move into the Six of Pentacles energy where we're ready to receive. And we do that through our meditation. And that inner peace and inner harmony comes from acknowledging that it's time to put down the ones. We don't have to defend ourselves anymore. When we know the truth, we accept it, we adapt, and we move forward in our, where is it? It's not here anymore. Strength. We had that in the original spread. So I'd say all in all, that sounds like it's going to be a week where we reconcile and find balance in all that we are receiving as upgrades. Spending so much time with ourselves might not always feel as rewarding to the immediate senses when we're so used to having the fondest memories of times that we spent with other people. And of course there's absolute truth in that, because as I've already said, we are tools of spirit in the name of love. So anything that brings joy brings love. And that, my friends, is your only task this week, is to create joy, embody joy, and offer that to everyone that you encounter, including yourself. Remembering your quiet boundaries in the process of sharing that generosity of spirit as you hold space for your authentic self. And that is it. So, peace out. I love you. As do the spirits, as you just saw.